Lucky Boys Podcast.
Language is what determines how you control people, of what you say, because the Chinese Exclusion Act was written to prevent Chinese from being here, not Asians, Chinese. And the Japanese Americans were put in camp by order of, do you remember what order? 496? I forgot the number. That particular order put Americans of Japanese descent into concentration camps. Not, what was the other camp that they used?
Internment camp?
Internment camps. No, that's another language of PCing. They were in concentration camps, but they used internment camps. What's the difference when you take somebody out of your house, tell you to get as much as you can carry, and say, you're getting the fuck out of here, we're taking your house, and you got to get rid of your stuff, and the best we can do is 8 cents on a dollar if you get that much for whatever goods that you have owned and earned since you were born here. What the fuck is that? And you telling me right now that if I'm going to censor this information, I went to class I went to school with college-educated students that has no idea that Americans were placed in concentration camps. They have no idea there was something called the Chinese Exclusion Act. And I even asked Chinese Americans that were born here, have no idea what a paper son is.
Yeah, I wasn't taught any of that. Were you, Norm?
Yeah. Well, not taught, but I read about it.
No, I mean in school. Like,
No, I wasn't taught
So
about
this
that.
is the reason why a lot of, American Chinese want to have American Chinese history taught in American colleges and American education institutions, because if we have African American histories, why can't we have Chinese American history? Why can't we have Japanese American history? We were part of that history that made America what it is now. We contributed just as much as the slaves that were forced upon our land. If you want to be politically correct, they were enslaved Americans. We're the outsourced Americans because we were cheaper to keep than the enslaved Americans because we were more passive. They didn't need to have guys with guns to look after us. We didn't eat as much as those large savages that we stole from their land. And they liked us so much, they ordered 234 whatever thousands of us to say, Lincoln probably woke up in the morning, fuck those guys, man. We just got a whole new shipment of chinks. They're cheaper. That's the gist of it. And the bottom line is, was that ever? Nobody knows. Even with Corky Lee, with the picture of the railroad, when the two railroads, the tracks were built, not a single Chinaman was in that photo. We banged the spikes in there. We lay those tracks in there. We know how to use dynamites that no one else knows how to use dynamites. And the term, not a Chinaman's chances, where the motherfucker had to go light that fuse and run out of that cave to make sure that, everything gets blown out of there. And the irrigation that made Napa Valley, that's famous for, the wine, yep. We irrigated that whole area that could not be. And we, made things happen that nobody else, we put our blood and our sweat into America to make what America is now. The engineering that we provided, that was so little to talk about.
You've only scratched the surface of
yeah, all of that. And, not only that, and there was also, Canada's one thing, and the same thing happened over there. The same thing happened in Panama, which is, still considered Central America. We have Mexico's in their Chinese histories in there. North America, Canadian, whatever. The American continent, Chinese has history in a lot of that, and it should be taught Because if we have a Spanish African study department at CUNY, there should be an Asian American, Chinese American, or Asian American study department in our city and state university.
I'm sure those kind of departments will grow if there is demand.
Hunter recently just kind of like, and I'm only speaking because I'm an alumni there. They had it before, it was minimum, and the thing is, and even with public schools, they should know. I mean, the fact that if they, if people of the World War II, they're trying to explain, concentration camps or whatever it is, a lot of people still didn't know, and they still think, the Holocaust is a hoax because of, once again, try to censor information. And if you go down south of the Mason-Dixon line, certain educations are twisted because of religious reasons, secular, non-secular things. And I see that because of certain fundings of how publications of textbooks, they would influence what our children are actually learning or not getting.
Lucky Boys Podcast.